Welcome to Dream Tales Sleep Stories. Tonight's reading is The Invisible Dog Walker. Settle into your bed or sofa and let your shoulders, jaw, and eyelids grow heavy. Inhale slowly, 1, 2, 3, and sigh the air away, allowing the day to fade into quiet dark. With every soft inhale, you invite fresh English phrases. With every gentle exhale, stray thoughts drift farther off. Behind my voice flows a gentle theta wave melody, renowned for guiding the mind toward deep relaxation. Soon the music will shift into soothing alpha wave tones, carrying you toward a calm shoreline of dreams. Keep your eyes closed or follow the captions, whichever feels right. Simply receive the rhythm and resonance of the language. Deep in rest, tonight's phrases will take root like seeds, ready to bloom into stronger English skills with the morning light. When you feel settled, hold that unhurried breath and allow yourself to drift into the tale. The Invisible Dog Walker begins now. And when the story's final line has faded, the music will linger a little longer, carrying you gently deeper into sleep. The Invisible Dog Walker. David Chen was a 13-year-old boy who lived in Maplewood, a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone knew everyone else's business. He was the kind of kid who always volunteered to help his neighbors, whether it was carrying groceries for elderly Mrs. Henderson or helping Mr. Garcia fix his broken fence. David's favorite way to earn pocket money was walking dogs for busy families in his neighborhood. Every afternoon after school, David would pick up his regular clients. Buddy, a golden retriever who loved to chase squirrels. Princess, a tiny chihuahua with a big attitude. And Max, a lazy bulldog who preferred napping to walking. The dog owners trusted David completely, and he had built a successful little business with 8 regular customers. Everything changed on a Wednesday afternoon in October. David's science teacher, Mr. Peterson, had been conducting experiments with light refraction and optical illusions. After class, David stayed behind to help clean up the laboratory equipment, as he often did to earn extra credit points. David, could you help me move this new experimental device to the storage room? Mr. Peterson asked, pointing to a strange machine that looked like a combination of a microscope and a laser projector. It's a prototype light-bending apparatus that the university lent us for our optics unit. David carefully lifted one end of the machine while Mr. Peterson took the other. As they carried it across the room, David accidentally bumped into a table, causing several bottles of chemicals to fall and mix together on the floor. The mixture began to bubble and produce a strange, shimmering vapor. "Oh no," Mr. Peterson exclaimed. Everyone out of the room immediately. But it was too late. The experimental device had somehow activated when it hit the floor, and a brilliant beam of light shot through the chemical vapor, creating a rainbow-colored cloud that enveloped David completely. When the vapor cleared, Mr. Peterson looked around frantically. "David? David, where are you?" "I'm right here, Mr. Peterson," David's voice replied. But there was no one to be seen. David looked down at his hands and gasped. He couldn't see them. He couldn't see any part of his body. he had become completely invisible. After several hours of panic, phone calls to David's parents, and consultations with the university scientists, everyone came to the same conclusion. The combination of the experimental light device and the chemical mixture had somehow altered David's molecular structure, making him invisible to the naked eye. The effect appeared to be temporary, but no one knew exactly how long it would last. The good news, explained Dr. Williams from the university, is that all our tests suggest you're perfectly healthy. The invisibility seems to be purely optical. You're still completely solid and normal in every other way. David's parents were worried sick, but David himself was surprisingly calm about the situation. After the initial shock wore off, he began to see the possibilities rather than just the problems. "Mom, Dad," he said that evening, his voice coming from what appeared to be an empty chair at the dinner table. "I think I should keep doing my dog walking job. The dogs can still see me. Well, they can smell me and hear me, which is what matters to them. And I really don't want to let my customers down." His parents exchanged worried glances. They could see the empty chair moving as David gestured, and it was still quite unsettling. "Are you sure that's safe, honey?" his mother asked. "What if someone sees you? I mean, sees the dogs walking by themselves?" David had already thought about this. "I'll be extra careful. I'll wear my regular clothes, so if anyone looks closely, they might just think I'm wearing all black or something. And I'll stick to the usual routes where people know me." The next afternoon, David put his plan into action. He put on his favorite jacket, jeans, and sneakers, even though he couldn't see them on his body. Then he headed to his first stop, the Johnson's house, to pick up Buddy. Mrs. Johnson opened the door and looked confused. "Hello? Is someone there?" "It's me, Mrs. Johnson. David. I'm here for Buddy's walk." Mrs. Johnson squinted and looked around. "David? I can hear you, but I can't see you. Are you hiding behind something?" David had prepared for this moment. "I'm wearing a new camouflage outfit for a school project about invisibility. It's really effective, isn't it?" "Well, yes, it certainly is. Buddy is ready for his walk. He's been waiting by the door for 10 minutes. Buddy came running to the door, his tail wagging furiously. He jumped up toward where David was standing, confirming to Mrs. Johnson that someone was indeed there. "See, Buddy knows I'm here," David said, clipping the leash to Buddy's collar. To anyone watching, it would look like the leash was floating in midair, but Mrs. Johnson was too busy looking for David to notice this detail. As they walked down the street, David discovered both the advantages and challenges of being invisible. On the positive side, he could observe people and situations without being noticed. He saw Mr. Garcia from next door practicing dance moves in his garage, completely unaware that anyone was watching. He noticed that the mysterious person who had been leaving beautiful flower arrangements on doorsteps was actually shy Mrs. Chen from 3 blocks away. However, David also faced unexpected difficulties. When they reached the park, other dog owners were confused and concerned to see Buddy apparently walking himself. "Excuse me," called Mrs. Patterson, who was there with her poodle. "Is that dog running loose? There should be someone responsible for him." David quickly thought of a solution. He made Buddy sit and then spoke in a loud, clear voice. "Buddy, heel. Good boy." Mrs. Patterson looked around in confusion. "Is his owner here somewhere?" "Over here," David called from behind a large oak tree. "Sorry, I was just checking something behind this tree. Buddy is very well trained." Mrs. Patterson nodded approvingly and continued on her way, though she kept glancing back with a puzzled expression. As the days passed, David became more creative with his explanations and more skilled at managing his invisible state. He developed a routine of speaking to the dogs in public places, so people would know there was a responsible person present, even if they couldn't see him. Some situations turned out to be unexpectedly funny. When he was walking Princess, the tiny Chihuahua, an elderly man saw the little dog's leash apparently floating through the air and called out, "Good heavens! That dog has learned to walk itself. What will they think of next?" David couldn't help but giggle, which made the man look around even more confused. The most challenging client was Max, the lazy bulldog. Max had a habit of lying down in the middle of sidewalks and refusing to move. Normally, David would gently coax him up, but now, when people saw a bulldog apparently being lifted by invisible hands, they were quite startled. One afternoon, while David was trying to encourage Max to continue walking, a jogger stopped in amazement. "Did that dog just levitate?" the jogger asked, staring at Max, who appeared to be floating slightly off the ground. David quickly set Max down. No sir. Max just has very good jumping skills. He's part flying bulldog." The jogger shook his head and continued running, muttering something about needing to get his eyes checked. Despite these challenges, David discovered that being invisible gave him unique opportunities to help people in his neighborhood. One evening while walking Bella, a German shepherd, he overheard Mrs. Rodriguez crying on her porch. She was talking on the phone about how she couldn't afford to fix her broken fence, and she was worried about her garden being damaged by stray animals. That night, David borrowed some tools from his father's garage and spent several hours fixing Mrs. Rodriguez's fence. He worked quietly and carefully, making sure no one saw the tools apparently moving by themselves. When Mrs. Rodriguez discovered her perfectly repaired fence the next morning, she was amazed and grateful, though she never figured out who her mysterious helper had been. David also used his invisibility to solve the mystery of the missing newspapers in his neighborhood. He discovered that it wasn't a person stealing them, but rather a clever raccoon family that had learned to grab the papers and take them back to their nest. David gently relocated the raccoon family to a wooded area near the park, where they would be happier and less likely to cause problems. However, the most important thing David learned during his time as an invisible dog walker was how much people appreciated his reliability and kindness, even when they couldn't see him. His regular customers continued to trust him with their beloved pets, and the dogs clearly loved him just as much as they had before. Mrs. Henderson, whose old Labrador Charlie had arthritis, was particularly grateful. "David, dear," she said one afternoon, speaking to what appeared to be empty air, I don't know how you do it, but Charlie seems so much happier after his walks with you. You have a special gift with animals." David felt proud and happy, even though Mrs. Henderson couldn't see his smile. After 2 weeks of invisible dog walking, David began to notice something strange. In certain lighting conditions, he could occasionally catch glimpses of his own reflection in windows or mirrors. It was faint, like seeing through frosted glass, but it was definitely there. He immediately called Dr. Williams at the university. "Doctor, I think the invisibility might be wearing off." Dr. Williams was excited to hear this news. "That's wonderful, David. Our research suggested that the effect would be temporary. Can you come to the lab so we can run some tests?" The tests confirmed that David's molecular structure was slowly returning to normal. Dr. Williams estimated that he would be fully visible again within a few days. On David's last day of being invisible, he decided to do something special for all the people in his neighborhood who had been kind to him. He spent the morning preparing small gifts. He picked flowers from his family's garden for Mrs. Chen, who had been secretly beautifying the neighborhood. He left a box of dog treats on Mrs. Patterson's porch with a note thanking her for caring about animal welfare. And he placed a small toolkit by Mr. Garcia's garage door to help with his home improvement projects. For his dog walking customers, David left personalized notes explaining that he had been the one walking their dogs during the past 2 weeks, and thanking them for their trust and patience during his camouflage experiment. That evening, as David was walking his final route with all 8 dogs, he had convinced their owners to let him take them all together for a special group walk. He began to feel a tingling sensation throughout his body. As they passed under a streetlight, David looked down and gasped with joy. He could see his hands holding the leashes. His body was becoming visible again, starting with his hands and gradually spreading up his arms. The dogs seemed to sense that something special was happening. They all wagged their tails and looked up at David as if they were seeing him for the first time, even though they had known he was there all along. By the time David returned home that night, he was completely visible again. His parents cried with relief and happiness when they saw their son's familiar face appear in the doorway. The next day at school, David's classmates were amazed by his story, though some of them found it hard to believe. Mr. Peterson was relieved that everything had worked out safely, and Dr. Mann Williams published a research paper about the unusual optical phenomenon that David had experienced. But the most meaningful response came from David's neighborhood. Word had spread about his invisible acts of kindness and his dedication to continuing his dog-walking job, even under extraordinary circumstances. The neighbors organized a small celebration in the park to thank David for his service to the community. Mrs. Henderson spoke for everyone when she said, "David, you've shown us that being a good neighbor isn't about being seen. It's about being there for others when they need you." David continued his dog-walking business with even more enthusiasm than before. He had learned that true friendship and trust don't depend on what people can see, but on what they can feel in their hearts. The dogs had accepted him completely, whether he was visible or invisible, and his human neighbors had learned to trust and appreciate him based on his actions rather than his appearance. Sometimes, when David was walking the dogs in the evening and the light was just right, he would remember those 2 weeks when he had been invisible. He realized that in some ways, everyone is invisible sometimes. When they're feeling shy or lonely or different from others. But kindness and caring can make anyone visible in the ways that really matter. The experimental device that had caused David's invisibility was safely stored away at the university, and Mr. Peterson made sure that all future science experiments followed much stricter safety protocols. But David sometimes wondered if another student might someday have a similar adventure, and he hoped that if they did, they would discover the same lesson he had learned. That being invisible to the eyes doesn't mean being invisible to the heart. From that day forward, whenever David walked the dogs through Maplewood, he did so with a special understanding of his community and a deep appreciation for the trust that his neighbors placed in him. And although no one could see it, he always walked with an invisible smile of satisfaction, knowing that he had made a real difference in the lives of both the animals and people he cared about.